But I refrain so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan, to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So to give a bit of context for this passage, for those of you who may not understand, there were these quote-unquote, super apostles that Paul referred to amongst the church of the Corinthians, right? The church of Corinth. And there were essentially these apostles who were trying to make themselves seem superior, right? Or greater than Paul because of their accomplishments or the things that they were doing or their quote-unquote righteousness, right? And Paul essentially was talking about his vision here, saying like, look, I was, called up to the third heaven and I experienced this vision with inexpressible things taking place, right? Saying, essentially that he's not any less worthy than these other apostles are. But also, Paul was expressing his humanness in, speaking about the thorn that he struggled with, that he pleaded 3 times for the Lord to take away. Now, we don't know specifically what this thorn was. It could have been a physical or a spiritual ailment that Paul was dealing with, right? But in the midst of the thorn, Paul was highlighting the grace of God even through weakness. And that's the beauty in this passage. It's a humility. Even in Paul's greatness, even in his perseverance, his endurance, right? He still highlighted his struggles and how God showed up in the midst of them. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Like, I could probably do some boasting in comparison to the average American or the average person who ain't really living for Christ, right? I read my Bible, I pray, I do a lot of things. I fast, right? But also at the same time, like I have some real weaknesses in my life. Instead of just looking at these things so negatively, having a real Christ-like perspective is realizing that I am accepted by Jesus. And in the midst of my weaknesses, he actually shows up and makes his power perfect there. And I just want to say that to you guys so that whatever the things are that you struggle with in your life. I don't know if you struggle with lust. I don't know if you struggle with insecurity, anxiety, fear, whatever it may be that you struggle with. While these things are hard, and while they also may make us feel like we're distant from the Lord, it's very important that we invite him into these spaces where we struggle with temptation, where we struggle with weakness, where we struggle with whatever it may be. Because in those areas, he's willing to show us his power. I heard someone say this a long time ago, and it really stuck with me. There is no message without a mess, and there is no testimony without a test. So sometimes